Okay, guys, we're back. This is English 101. We have returned. And I'm your trusty professor, Jeff Clock, here with a selfie stick in the backyard. And we're on our final phase of the class now. This is where, we're looking at the David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan readings for the final exam. So this is just, basic reminder. I'm going to need 4 papers before May 14th in order for you to pass the class. First drafts, by the way, get Bs. So if you need an A, you're gonna need to get to me, or you're gonna need to get the papers to me early enough for you to do revisions. So that's something to keep in mind with your papers. But I will accept, first drafts on the 14th. It's just that May 14th. But at that point, you're not really gonna have much time to do revisions. So just want to kind of remind you guys about that. It's a little slightly tricky. But again, if you're going credit, no credit, which is what I recommend, and I just emailed you some information about credit, no credit, that shouldn't really matter too much. Get me what you can when you can, and you guys have 4 assignments. There's 3 papers on the Phaedrus, one of which we did in class together, and there are 2 other papers you can get me, and then we'll, get those 4 assignments done, comment on the blog, watch the videos, and you will be looking good. So let's continue with our look at David Foster Wallace and animals and food. So I'm on page 2. Again, if you don't have the readings, email me. I will email them to you. And let's take a look at what's going on here. So I want to pick up exactly where we left off last time by kind of repeating myself a little bit. In the middle of page 2, David Foster Wallace raises this. Is it all right to boil a sentient, that's like a thinking creature alive, just for our gustatory pleasure? Is it all right to kill a living creature, an animal who thinks, just for the pleasure of eating it? A related set of concerns. Is the previous question irksomely PC or sentimental, right? Is that question just like being annoyingly oversensitive? Or is it a real question? What does all right even mean in this context, right? Because he was asking, is it all right to boil a creature? Is it just a matter of personal choice, meaning does all right mean all right for you, or does all right mean all right for anybody and everybody? One thing you're going to need to do well on this exam, and this is a tough thing to ask students to do, but I really think you ought to practice with it and try it. You got to take the question seriously. I think what's going to happen for a lot of you, and this is much easier when I have you in the room and I can hear your responses, and then I can harass you about your responses, because I would push you and annoy you and bother you with these things. But I can't do that here unless you comment on the blog, and of course very few people are commenting on the blog, and so that means I can't really correct you guys that much. But you got to really take this question seriously that David Foster Wallace is asking. I think for a lot of you guys, you eat meat, and so when David Foster Wallace says, "Is it all right to boil a living creature alive?" If it's a thinking creature, I'm not talking about a plant, but an animal. Is it okay to boil a creature alive just for the enjoyment of eating it? A lot of you guys are going to go, yeah, of course it is. It's totally fine. I do it all the time. I eat meat all the time. It's totally fine to just boil up, to kill living beings for food because I enjoy food. And yes, I could eat plants, but I don't want to. I want to eat steak, and so it's totally fine. And I think that's the reaction most of you are going to have. But he's asking, you need to take seriously the question. There's a couple of different ways to do that. One is to provide detailed reasons why it's okay. So some of my students go, well, I think it's okay to eat meat because, animals eat each other, so it should be fine for us to eat them. But because you're just like, well, look, animals eat each other in nature, and, human beings are animals, and we eat other animals, so it should be totally fine. Which is an okay answer, although you should keep in mind that you live in a civilization. There's lots of things animals do that you don't do. You don't have sex in public. You don't kill your own kind. There's, you don't, you fly around in airplanes. You're watching videos on your phone. Like, maybe you should be held to a higher standard. Maybe you could do better. You speak. You have language. You have books. Should you maybe also not kill living creatures? So it's one thing to be like, well, look, it's just the state of nature, circle of life, whatever. But it's bigger than that. Because you're not necessarily in nature, you're in civilization, and civilization asks you to do all kinds of things that are different from the animal kingdom, right? You don't live in an animal. If an animal, You can't just follow your animal instincts in civilization all the time. Somebody makes you mad, you can't just murder them. You live in a society, and we've decided it's not okay to just murder people. Um, so you want to be careful just being like, well, I'm going to do whatever animals do. Animals eat each other, so I'm going to eat animals. Well, animals do a lot of things, and so you may want to think about the differences. The main thing I'm going to ask you to do here, and again, remember that first week of class, I told you I was going to teach you everything you needed to know, and all we would be doing is practicing with it. The one thing I'm going to ask you here to consider, you got to consider objections. So if you say it's okay to eat animals, you better really think hard. And if I had you, I'd put you in groups, I'd make you do this, but I can't force you to do it. You're going to have to do it on your own. Maybe by talking to family members or other people that you know, but you really got to think about this if you're going to do well on paper 4. Um, what would someone who objected to you say? Because there's got to be, because here's one way of looking at it. Eating animals causes animals pain. I don't think there's a way around that. Cows don't want to be killed. Um, Animals don't want to be, like, it causes them pain to stab an animal, to boil a lobster. And then the question becomes, why is it okay for you to cause pain when you don't have to? Right? You'd think about if somebody caused you pain and they didn't have to, you'd think they were a pretty bad person, right? If somebody just stabbed you in the arm, you would be like, this is a horrible fucking person. There was no reason for them to stab me in the arm. They didn't have to do that. Well, you don't have to eat animals. You're choosing to, and you could just not do it. So it raises an issue about if you here's another way to put the question: why are you causing pain when you don't have to? Isn't one of the main things we should ask human beings to do is reduce cruelty? I actually think that maybe I've often thought when I think about Socrates type stuff like philosophy shit. One of the things I often think about is one of the only ethical rules I take really seriously is reduce cruelty. Cruelty is just bad, and we need less of it. There's a lot of complicated ethics about lots of issues, but the main issue to me is reduce cruelty. Sometimes people will say the only ethical rule you need is the golden rule, which means treat people as you would like to be treated. But I don't think that's a very good rule because people like to treat themselves like garbage, and I do not want them treating me like that. But reducing cruelty seems to me to be a pretty basic idea about what human beings could do to be better. Let's be less cruel to each other. Let's support each other and be less cruel. Well, if you eat meat, you are causing cruelty because you're causing pain to animals. It's not something we like to think about. But David Foster Wallace, he's a philosopher like Socrates, and David Foster Wallace wants you to think about things that you don't really think about too hard, and so he's really pushing you here. And so I'm going to ask you guys to really, it might be worth it. I know no one's going to do this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Get a fucking piece of paper out and write down some reasons why. Try to answer David Foster Wallace's questions with reasons. Give those reasons examples. Maybe go with multiple examples. Then consider objections. What would people that disagreed with you say? And then what would you say to them? Right? So I gave you one already, which is that eat. And by the way, I eat meat, so it's not like I'm not trying to make it like I'm some special person and I do special stuff. I eat meat, but I want you guys to really think about the fact that. Did you like what I said when I said that human beings should reduce cruelty? Well, okay. Why don't you reduce cruelty by not eating animals because eating animals causes them pain? Is it because you don't care about reducing cruelty, or is there some reason why it doesn't matter? Or I just want you to think about it. I'm not, by the way, this is not trying to convert you to vegetarianism, but it is something serious. You should it's worth thinking about. It's a real philosophy question, and I kind of love it. So I would just ask you to take David Foster Wallace seriously, because if you read these essays and you go, here's the thing, you already eat meat, most of you. And if you already eat meat, then you're going to feel like, whatever, I eat meat. And you don't want to think about it. You just want to keep eating meat because everybody wants to just keep enjoying the things that they enjoy. But for this essay, in order to do this, you're going to have to think about things you don't usually think about, which means you can't just be like, I eat meat, so it must be okay. And whatever, it's natural to eat meat, I'm done. You have to write a 500-word essay on this. So it can't just be eating meat is fine because nature. You got to think about it. Are you a part of nature? Are you supposed to act the way animals do? Is it okay to act the way animals do in other circumstances? I don't know. Anyway, something to think about. I'll see you guys in the next video.